Ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing to make our final descent into the Gray Avenue. The local time is what it is, and the temperature is good degrees. This is where curious minds, entrepreneurs, daredevils, hustlers, and problem solvers converge. On your left is the world of productivity and success, home of the unicorns themselves. For your safety and comfort, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign. On behalf of the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Gray Ave podcast, where all dreams do come true.
What's up, guys and girls? My name is Gray, and this is another episode of the Gray F podcast. And we're still in the Johannesburg episodes. That's all the podcasts that are recorded in Johannesburg. And this is one of my favorites. Not only the Johannesburg podcast, but this is one of my favorite podcast episodes of all time. And our guest today, guys, is Matt Brown of The Matt Brown Show. So if you're familiar with the podcasting world in South Africa, you listen to podcasts, you definitely has come across his podcast. He's one of the top podcasters in South Africa right now. So I've always been looking forward to meet Matt, and thanks to a friend of mine, Jonny Eaglefeather, he's the one who actually linked me up to Matt. Now speak of networking, guys, it's awesome. Matt Brown is an entrepreneur, speaker, and the founder of the global media platform, The Matt Brown Show. He is also the CEO of Digital Kungfu, a strategic business consultancy that specializes in helping companies accelerate innovation and disrupt traditional markets by enabling them with new ways to do business that serve their customers more effectively and responsively. So I guess that gives you a picture of who I was interviewing on this episode. And what we talked about, it's a whole lot of lessons, guys. And this, to me, was more like a lecture. I was being schooled here because Matt has a lot of business experience. And I was just listening and asking questions wherever I could. And like I said, he's one of the top podcasters in South Africa. Some of the critics say that he is the Tim Ferriss of South Africa. But anyway, so we talked about entrepreneurship, some of the hard lessons, and podcast and brand building. And we talk about the importance of having a story to your brand or in your business and how effective that is and how it affects the rest of the business. We talked about social media, monetizing your brand, the story of, sticking to your guns or selling out definitely was in there. And he has a lot of interesting things to say about that. And this podcast is long, but I recommend that you listen all the way to the end because it's full of content and some references and links of the things that he's working on to help podcasters and other people like you. So I will post some of the links in the description, but make sure you listen to the podcast to the end. And also you can check out his website, which I'll post the link in the description. But if you Google The Matt Brown Show, you should definitely find a lot of links all over the web. Enjoy my awesome conversation with Matt Brown. Folks who already listen to podcasts obviously already know who you are, but...
Do they?
Yeah, I'm sure people who actually listen to podcasts, they're pretty much familiar with your show.
Reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never know what to do with that sort of thing. So, I don't know.
Just give a brief to those who don't know who Matt is.
Oh, okay. My name's Matt Brown, and so I started podcasting about, not too long before you, I guess. You could call yourself a fast follower. But I started podcasting. It's called The Matt Brown Show, and basically my community's all entrepreneurs, and so I started out trying to fix a warped perception of entrepreneurship that the media was creating. That it was kind of like, if you start a business, hey, you're going to be successful, you know.
Yes.
Wind up in the south of France 6 months later doing like Bolivian cocaine with a bunch of Russian supermodels, you know. And that's clearly not the truth. It could be 6 years later and you probably won't get there, you know.
Yeah.
Not to say that the Russian supermodel thing wouldn't be nice, you know, but but my point is, like, that was my whole why, was to try and fix the realities of what entrepreneurship is actually about. And it's hard work, guts, determination, and an unwavering sense of self to succeed, regardless of what comes your way, you know. And podcasting was it just felt like a cool way to do it, but simply because at the time there was no market. There was literally no market. It was a terrifically bad idea for many reasons. And I guess I got lucky because, I don't know, my sense was that podcasting was always going to be a very exciting medium to tell stories on, because no one cares about ads anymore.
Sure.
You know, do me a favor, like you can't wait to push that skip ad button on a YouTube pre-roll ad, you know. And the same can be said for many other forms of, I mean, we're going to chat about digital marketing in a second, but I mean, if you think about all the communities that currently exist on Facebook and Twitter, they were built on vanity-driven metrics.
Yes.
Now the algorithms changed on Facebook's timeline, so unless you're actually buying ads to support your content, then no one's going to see it. So you've got 100,000 likes or fans or whatever, and if you publish any content, I mean, you're lucky if 5%, 10% of those fans of yours, which should be everyone, you should have a complete distribution.
Yeah.
To be fair, but that's not how the system's built. So I'm a big proponent of disruption and innovation, and actually storytelling more importantly, because, you know, if you can take a 30-second, 60-second ad, but what can you possibly tell me about yourself in that time that's going to make me trust you or make me believe that you have the resources necessary to solve my problem? So that's what's really important about the Matt Brown Show specifically, is because entrepreneurs are hungry for information. And why make your own mistakes when you can learn from the mistakes of others? And there's nothing that you're ever going to do in business that someone else hasn't potentially already done.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about like exponential technologies and that kind of thing. I mean, there's always the 10%, right? There's always the 10% of the stuff that you think you know, but actually you don't. So the Matt Brown Show, I don't know, if you just said to me now, like, everybody knows who I am in the podcasting space. I mean, it has been a great journey, and I got lucky, and so check out the Matt Brown Show.
And what were you doing before you actually started the show?
Well, I've started 8 companies before, 6 failed for various reasons. 2 of those that I did build, I eventually sold. But in between, all those failures, I was in and out of corporate. So I'm from a management consulting technology background / entrepreneur / creative agency / strategist / I don't know, brand builder. I suppose as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to wear many hats, and be able just to kind of spot opportunities when they come, and if they light you up, pursue them, you know. So yeah, in and out of corporate / entrepreneur. I'm a bit of a hybrid.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the lessons you have learned from interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs. What are the things that are the obvious to entrepreneurs that are like ill-perceived from the outside? Like you said, of the Russian supermodel, is obviously not true, right? What are the others that are like in between?
Okay, so what's obvious to entrepreneurs but not so obvious to those on the outside, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably it's probably the biggest thing for entrepreneurs. I'll put it this way: until you are running your own business, there's many things that you don't think about, because you're thinking about the business plan, you're thinking about potentially pricing strategy or more marketing strategy or the problem that you're going to solve in the market. But actually, that's only telling you half the story. So there's a couple things here. The first one is no spreadsheets, because you do your numbers, I hope. But any startup should do their numbers. But the reality is that no spreadsheets met the realities of the market, ever. So, I mean, it was the same thing, for all my companies. In fact, the main reason why I failed is because I gave up. And that's the second point. Shit got real too quickly, too hard. It became too hard. I couldn't deal with the pressure. I was too young. I mean, my first business, I was in my early 20s, and I was living in London at the time, and it's just too much for you. You're not ready.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm getting to is there's 2 distinct spheres of any entrepreneur's life. The first one is the business itself. And how do you make that business grow and succeed and navigate changing market conditions? But then there's the second side, which is more important, which is actually about the person. And so when shit gets real, or when it gets really, really hard, and you start missing mortgage payments and credit card payments, and you're forced to sell your car, you're forced to eat 2-minute noodles for 8 months because you're trying to save every cent possible to create a cash flow cushion in your business. That's the other side of the story that people don't tell you. So this is another reason why the Matt Brown Show, I think, has worked really well, because, I mean, you're a listener, you know. I mean, sometimes we talk about strategy and the business end of the coin, but actually a large portion of it is the person. So we're like, when you had to sell that car of yours, or what did you do? And how did you persevere? What made you get up that next morning, when your wife divorced you and, and your kids turned around to you and, kind of said they hate you because you never gave them any time? What was it like being a woman in a man's world back then? Do you know what I'm saying? And what lessons would you like to share with other women who potentially are trying to inspire or start businesses, So there's definitely those two things. And I guess the point I'm laboring here is that when you are reading the media, it's never going to tell you the full story, because the media is there to make money and they like sensationalism.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship's not about that at all. It's lonely, it's tough, it's hard. It'll test every single, DNA strand in your body and your mind to make sure that, you are that person that's worthy of that success at the end of the day. Success doesn't happen overnight, and that's what the media tells you.
So you touched on a point that actually resonates with me a lot. Maybe you can speak more about that, but it's specifically on, for example, the news and the media create content mostly to sensationalize and entertain people.
Oh, yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, for most of the people listening are aspiring entrepreneurs and stuff like that, could you just explore on the subjects on which kind of content you absorb kind of helps or determines the points of views or the state of mind that it creates for you as an entrepreneur?
So you talk about the media, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the comparison of content absorption. What you absorb actually matters as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we're all content consumption machines, so there's the pull factor. But then from a push perspective, because we have a mobile phone, we're all media companies, in essence. So I think what's interesting from a media perspective is that you can't, listen, let's look broadly. The whole world's dominated by fake news, Photoshop photography, Instagram photos, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's become very difficult to trust where you get your information from. Is the news actually true? All that stuff about fake news throughout the US election is another one, this is a really fucked up world that we're living in right now.
For sure.
We're sitting in a bookstore. I trust more information in books than I do online in many respects. So podcasting, funnily enough, is the most honest medium. And there was a study that was actually done in about 10, 12 years ago in the UK. It's about 15,000 respondents, and basically they had a celebrity, and he put out on radio, print, and TV 2 stories by one celebrity. One of those stories was true, the other one was false. And then they asked respondents to guess which story was fake. And what they identified was that radio, aka podcasting, which is now the digital version of radio essentially, was far easier to tell whether someone was lying versus, say, video versus, say, print. Interesting, eh? And the reason for that is because, you're asking me questions, I can't really bullshit you right now.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not acting.
No, I'm not. What are you going to do? Even if you edit it out, it's kind of difficult not to get my point across.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? Or the fact that I'm authentic or honest, or that, the Matt Brown Show is a platform that I'd like to actually go and check out or even yours. Do you know what I mean? You come across as being authentic. And when you think about, in my view personally, is that we're all dying for authenticity. We want it more than ever because we are starved of it, and that's what makes podcasting more specifically such an exciting medium, right? What you're doing and all the people that you spoke to about travel or entrepreneurship or whatever it is, these are exciting times. And if you're gonna trust or put your trust in mediums, why would you do video? I mean, there's so much shit out there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you go through Facebook timeline for like just 5 minutes and you get depressed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really, really crap. I mean, where's the great story? You know, like I'd rather spend half an hour with you or learning about one of your guests or what they did and what they're doing, what makes them cool and what makes them unique, you know, than I would, you know, watching 1,000 30-second videos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, what hits on me is that most people would think that, well, they would say, okay, a podcast that's 30 minutes long, it's really, really long. But there's studies that shows that people spend more than an hour on Facebook at one block of time, like just sitting, you watch a cat video, you go to the next one, and without knowing it, you will watch an hour of it.
Cat videos and cucumbers.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, but you would have spent that on some kind of content that, you know, is a little helpful, that you could learn something from it.
Yeah.
But because these videos are like broken down into little clever time zones, and the next one loads right before you finish the other one, and then they add their ads in between, like you waste actually a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
But now, getting back to entrepreneurship, on your recent podcast, you mentioned something about mastermind groups.
Yeah.
Because I personally find it rare to find people who have the similar mindset, and we can hang out and discuss the same problems that we face, and you know how we can elevate and help ourselves to go to the next chapter. How do you go about creating those, like in a city like this? We're in Johannesburg right now, it's huge, everyone is split across the city.
Network, dude. I mean, the thing is, people think that, you know, when you start a business, you're alone.
Yeah.
You're never alone, ever. Like, as much as you like to think that you're an island and invincible, you're not. And shit's gonna get real at some point. I mean, especially when you start out. And when things get heavy, I call it the valley of death. So it's like a stock market graph. So that's actually what the life or journey of an entrepreneur is like, where there's a series of ups and a series of downs, and the downs are very, very down. And when you're down, who are you gonna talk to? Your wife, your girlfriend? Probably not. She'll sympathize, but she's not gonna understand.
For sure.
You need someone that's going to understand and actually give you perspective. So, for instance, you might say to me, Matt, look, my podcast numbers, I don't know if it's true or not, but just as a hypothetical scenario, you may say, hey, Matt, I've been doing this thing for a year. If I work that out, probably I spend maybe 4,000 hours a month. A year doing the show, and it's not really getting me the numbers or whatever the problem is. Effectively, you're in the valley of death. And all of us go through this. And when you're in the valley of death, it's the time when you make some terrifically bad decisions. For instance, you might say, fuck this, I'm going to stop podcasting.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm going to fire this client. Or I'm going to hire an employee when I don't have the cash flow. Or I'm going to expand my office premises even though I know I can't afford it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just make some reckless decisions, right? So a mastermind group essentially is a group of like-minded entrepreneurs that essentially help you achieve the things that you want to achieve, but also it's a forum of helping you grow as an individual, right? So through personal skills development and that kind of stuff. So very simply, you meet once a month. You can have people from different businesses, ideally no direct competitors, but same industries or numerous industries. I mean, Rich Mulholland phoned me the other day. He goes, I listen to your podcast. I think it's not a good idea to have only companies from creative industries. Sure. And actually he thinks that, you know, and Rich is never short of an opinion, but also one of my biggest fans, by the way. Love him to death. But he was saying, look, you know, the variety is the spice of life. And if you're going to have 5 business owners all talking about their stuff, it actually helps to have them, one from legal finance, you know, robotics versus blah, because you can draw from the perspective of the group. Our decision simply was to say, let's keep it amongst the creative industry because we want to create deal flow for each other. So for instance, it's more unlikely that you're going to create deal flow from let's say a robotics company and a legal, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Like, it just made sense for us. But you meet once a month for 3 hours, you talk about personal and business positives and negatives, and really you hold each other accountable to goals. So let's say this was a mastermind group, you would say to me, Matt, okay, I want you to hit 100,000 downloads of your next episode. Just really bad example, but I mean, you could do that, right? And then we'd come back next month and I would say, okay, this is what we got 87,000. I mean, one of the goals I was given more recently, to give an actual example, was you need to be in at least 3 magazines or media sources by blah, blah, blah. So I was in 12 within a month. You know, so it's kind of like, because you know when you sit down with the guys again, you know, you want to give them the good news story, you know, but it can be decide whether you want an investor or not. And if you do want an investor, then what kind of investor do you want? But again, it's about accountability and helping you achieve better business results faster.
And you pointed on growth, podcasting specifically. There are also other people here who would want to start their own podcast.
Oh, cool.
And myself, I'm still learning how to do that.
You're like a master here, dude.
No.
You need to take a photo of this.
Totally
it's got like
not.
2 mics and it's got all plugged in. Looks good, man.
Yeah, thanks, but I'm totally a noob in this. So speaking about growth, I've never been in a magazine at all.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if I've even considered it before.
You should. The media's your friend, dude. If you're running a business, like, be nice to the media and give them cool things to talk about. Because it can really help you grow. I mean, the Matt Brown Show is syndicated in Entrepreneur magazine, so I get 250,000 people a month that come across my content. Yeah, and because I'm South Africa's best podcaster, so apparently I wasn't called that. I mean, I don't know if you guys listen to Tim Ferriss or whatever. I've been called South Africa's answer to Tim Ferriss. Like crazy accolades, which I'm very humble to receive.
Sure.
But I guess my point is that when you start working with the media, these things actually become real. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe I am South Africa's best podcaster. I don't know. Maybe you are. Do you know what I'm saying? But my point is that it's about the story that you tell that's more important than whether or not it's necessarily all true. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that you should lie, but what I'm saying is here that everything you say has got to be factually based, but it's how you tell the story about those facts. So, for instance, has your business been around for 7 years?
No.
Well, okay, but what if it had been? So let's say there's a number way. I got a client, right? I'm busy producing a show for now, and so they said, I said, how long have you been around for? And they went 5-6 years. I was like, okay, so what if it was 36, or take 6 times 12, that's 72, right? So 72 months. Or what if the collective value of your clients was 1.2 billion? So you've been around for 7 years, 72 months, or your clients, have a assets under management, or you provide XYZ services to clients worth 1.2 billion. What's the better way to tell your story? The 1.2 billion, right?
Yes.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
So it's about how you craft your story to the media so that the media starts to want to tell your story.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's
and I mean, it's all storytelling, dude. Like people say to me, but people want the visual on podcasts. And I'm like, podcasts are more visual than people realize, because it actually uses the imagination of the person listening. Like we're in a bookstore now, guys. What do you think that looks like?
I think someone can imagine.
Yeah, and I can guarantee that everyone's listening to this right now will be thinking about a different type of bookstore.
Yeah.
That's what makes podcasting so amazing. So in fact, in my view, podcasting is the best storytelling medium, because unlike a blockbuster TV ad or whatever, it's like you literally get told everything. You don't work for it.
Sure.
And it's great, it's cool, right? But I call that the lean forward experience. Podcasting's the lean back experience, because actually, you know what? Sometimes you just don't have time for Netflix. Sometimes you just don't have time to check into your favorite segments on the radio.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't have the time to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So we're moving into this lean back, on-demand consumption sort of economy, where everything's available on your terms when you want to watch it and listen to it.
What I appreciate about podcasting is that when you're absorbing the content, it's more interactive than, say, watching television, because it makes you think. It's like you're absorbed in a subject.
Yes.
And like you say, if it's audio, it forces you to imagine, like, okay, so what's going on?
Yeah.
Or from the story that the other guy is telling, you sort of have to go inside your head and find.
So I do this funny thing here, because I have to sell storytelling on audio all the time, right? So that's what my company, Matt Brown Media, does. So basically, like, I do this thing and I say, okay, so sometimes people say to me that they want the visual. I'm like, no, because if you're not doing literally, like I'm talking bite-sized segment stuff, 20 minutes maximum, even for a brilliantly edited show on video, people are going to stop. They're going to stop watching the video and just have the audio going. So I don't really care too much for Tim Ferriss and those kind of accolades, but what I'd love to be called one day is the Larry King of South African podcasting.
Right.
Because think about this, the long format interview, right, is dead.
Yes.
Everywhere around the world. Where's Larry King? He's retired. Why? because I promise you now, he can still do it. He still does. Like, it was on Tim Ferriss's show, funny enough, with Carl Fussman recently. But basically, and he was saying the same thing. He said that the mainstream media is full of such bullshit.
Yeah. Right now, it's too much.
It is so bad. And he's saying, where's the long format interview? And the only place that exists now is on podcasts.
Yeah.
But that's where, if you really want to get to know who Larry King is and what made him successful, that's where you do it. You know, sure, I could interview him on an hour, 30-minute video webcast thing, but I can guarantee you no one's interested in the visual.
Yeah.
So what's the opportunity cost?
Pretty much, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm like just really passionate about this new thing called storytelling on audio, because we are busy people. We don't want the visual necessarily, unless we're really producing like CNBC grade shows like Rand Neuner is with his cryptocurrency thing. I mean, I met with him last week. Basically, we're having this philosophical debate about show structure, because the human mind is kind of hardwired for structure of information, not necessarily the information itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can tell, like, it's the hero's journey, right? So it's a methodology done by Joseph Campbell, and he basically said, what makes a best-selling novel, and like the culture map, like if this was a best-selling novel, and what would make this work versus any other best-selling novel. And he identified commonalities between them, and it was called The Hero's Journey. It's a book that was literally written by him. And it walks through a series of structured information sets. It's like the status quo. Then you get a call to adventure, and then you get a series of trials and a crisis. If you watch a movie and it's like the friends split, or the girlfriends no longer talk to each other, or the couple breaks up, it's the crisis where the story kind of then enters this point where it's like they find some treasure. They fall back in love, and I didn't know you really meant that. And for me, it's like when you know the structure, you really find these commonalities in everything that you watch. Netflix series, the whole thing. So it's really more about the structure of information. That's important first, because if you go to a keynote talk or an event where there's speakers, you know straight away when the talk's crap.
Yeah.
You do, right? It's because your mind goes, this is not structured right.
Yes.
You mean
on TEDx especially, there's a lot of
it's bad, You know it straight away. But it's more about how you tell the story, not what the character elements are within that. Do you know what I mean? There's a hero, a protagonist, and so forth. But it's the structure of information that the human mind wants. And so if you go back to the medium of video versus audio, like you have to change the structure completely for a video-based show versus, say, a Larry King of South African podcasting, sort of show where it can be different. It has to be different because you have the captive attention of that market for so much longer.
Okay, so let's talk about your company, Digital Kungfu. There's Matt Brown Media and there's Digital Kungfu. Could you just break them up for me, please?
Yeah, so it started off as Digital Kungfu, and then it's funny because there's an expression in the world of entrepreneurship which goes like this, that when you're stuck inside the bottle, you can't read the label. It was told to me by Howard Mann, one of the guests I've had on my show. And it's true, because the whole time I thought I was building a digital consultancy, like my podcast was called the Digital Kungfu Show. And when I interviewed Rich Mulholland, I think on my 57th episode, he said to me, dude, you need to rebrand. I'm like, no. Why do I need to rebrand? This is like live on the show. You can still go there now and listen to this whole thing actually go down. And I said to him, but why do I need to rebrand? And he goes, well, because quite frankly, Matt, your show's got nothing to do with digital and everything to do with entrepreneurship. So you need to rebrand it the Matt Brown Show. The funny thing is, there's two things here. One, the lesson here for you guys listening is if you tell a story to a community that you care about for long enough, they will eventually take ownership of your story. And that's what Rich did to me that day. He took ownership of it and said, no, you need to do this.
Yes.
It's the most powerful. That's when you know you're doing or creating something that the community cares about. And it's the most powerful form of community-driven marketing that you can ever create in any industry or business or, more broadly, just in general. Like, it's just so amazing when that kind of thing happens. But anyway, so then I rebranded it. And so the whole time I thought I was building a sort of a digital consultancy. I was actually building a media company. So now I'm in a situation where I've got two companies. I met with a really awesome PR chick this morning. And basically, again, I've got such great relationships with the community of business and CEOs and billionaires and entrepreneurs. So when I have these kind of stuck moments, I can reach, it's like a mastermind, just much broader, obviously. But I can go out to them now and say, listen, what should I do? So now the general consensus is to basically get rid of Digital Kung Fu, which is, now I'm emotionally sore by that, and just bring everything under Matt Brown Media. So it would be kind of, live podcasts or live shows, which we spoke about earlier before we started recording. And then obviously speaking and consulting and, the Matt Brown Show, and actually talk about cryptocurrencies and robotics and AI and all those sorts of cool things. They become subjects.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then, of course, there's the studio side where we produce the shows as well. So, I don't know. I'm kind of like, this is the thing that I said to you earlier. Like, you never know what you're building. It's funny because when you start, you think, I'm going to do this and solve this problem.
Sure.
But then it's different. Like, you were doing travel. Now you're doing, like, why is Matt Brown on your travel show? I'm just saying it's a bad example, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, like, you have to move with the market. And you'll find the things that really are working for you. Like the podcast, dude. I mean, like, I could switch digital. Okay, fine, I'd lose my authority ranking and stuff like that. But Matt Brown, the Matt Brown Show and Matt Brown Media, kind of like, people know me for that. They don't know me for Digital Kung Fu. In fact, if anything, they go, "What is that?" Like, you
it's
just
a cool name, though.
Yeah. What, you're gonna buy it from me?
For how much? Depends. I like what you mentioned there about figuring it out as you go sometimes, because when I was trying even to start the podcast, I would speak to a number of people. I didn't know anything. And almost everyone was telling me to, actually, you need to know what you're doing. Like, as if there's a limit where you can read enough and say, look, I'm ready right now and you know everything. I did my research, but once I started, it was a completely different world where I was just, most of it is just adjusting as I go. Like, okay, this is what's happening and I have to do it a certain way. And before we move on from that now, how do you look at the current state of digital marketing in South Africa?
Well, personally, I think digital marketing as a term should be banned for life. Some clown some time ago, when the website craze was all happening, decided that it would be a really good idea to put the word marketing with digital, because it represented online. And of course, hey, the fundamentals of marketing haven't fucking changed. I mean, honestly, it's such bullshit. I swear a lot, guys. But it's absolute BS, right? Because digital is actually about business. It's not about marketing. Marketing is marketing, innovation is innovation, disruption is disruption. All these words are in the English dictionary and they all have very defined meanings. So I don't know why we actually don't look up these words and actually go, does digital marketing in the English dictionary? No. No, it's not actually. But so marketing is, sure. Yeah. Digital is, what's the definition is like the conversion of something analog into digital, ones and zeros, right? So basically, I keep saying this, the companies that are going to succeed in the future are those that out-market, and in other words, out-storytell their competitors, and out-innovate. So the more they innovate, you need the marketing engine to tell that story, right? So if you got two, like Uber versus Lyft, who's going to win?
Uber.
Why?
Their story is so compelling.
Exactly.
It's amazing, yeah.
Exactly. So that's marketing. But technology is there as the enabler of disruption, right? Or innovation.
They're technically
or whatever.
a tech company, but their story, it's all they don't even appeal as a tech company anymore, because they have a story to them. So if I think of Airbnb, I don't think of like a tech company, doing hostels and stuff. It's like, no, you know their story.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they call it the Uberization of business. So for a long time, it was like, well, Airbnb and Uber. That was the two and Kodak, of course. Shame, poor Kodak.
Yes.
but that's basically business for me hasn't changed. Really hasn't. It's the fact that you've got a fragmented media ecosystem now means you've got more choices to tell your story on. But you still need to tell a story. And so actually, if I would say, the most important thing is tell your story better.
I remember back in the day when the tech companies were coming up, if there's a new technology or an innovative technology that they're trying to sell, it was about specs, right? It has a 10 gigabytes, this is the speed limit and all these kind of things. Right now, you don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
I think the approach has kind of changed. People rather just tell the story of the product, and then it sort of resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, you're talking about the pace of technology moving at the pace that it is. I mean, take phones. Why do you buy phone A versus phone B versus C, D, E, F, G, H, and I?
Sure.
Through all the way. You know what I mean? Like, you buy the story that brand represents.
For sure.
So Apple, think different. You know, I mean, can you justify the price premium on Apple anymore? No.
No, yeah.
But why?
The story is so
The
compelling.
story stopped since Steve Jobs passed on.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's obviously things like culture and whatever that then, you know, drive a business forward from an actual end product perspective. But fundamentally, what do you want a phone for? SMSs,
yeah.
WhatsApp potentially, maybe some social media. I mean, like, some people say to me, well, I'd prefer a phone that's actually just a dumb phone, where there's no smartphone apps, where there's no internet connection, because basically all I want to do is send an SMS, you know, and make a phone call. But now I can make a phone call on WhatsApp, I can SMS on WeChat, I can actually use SMS, I can use Facebook Messenger. It's like the proliferation of your options, but the need state's the same. But when you look at the delivery of, or how technology delivers on that need state, it's parity. Absolute parity, right? I mean, it's a dime a dozen. No, geez, I'm buying because of data costs on my network, not about what the phone can give me.
For sure.
You know, and more, and I'm not saying that's always the case, but I'm saying in general that's a working theory. So you're buying the story, you buy the why of the business or the brand, and then the what and the how. It's like Tom's shoes. I mean, the guy Bryce, forget his surname, it's Wachowski or something like that. But basically, he founded Tom's Shoes on the philosophy that if you buy one of our shoes, we will donate one to a child in need. Only problem is, he actively goes out into the media and says that his shoes are not as good as as competitors. Now, what if the CEO of Apple did that? The CEO of Coke, CEO of F&B, Standard Bank, Nedbank, pick a business. Any CEO stands up and goes, our products are not as good. You know, like stocks are going to plummet, sales will drop, blah, 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 because it's about confidence, right?
Yeah.
But here you've got Tom's doing this, and they're a $600 million company. So what's different?
The story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The consumers, their customers, buy the why of Tom's, the philosophy, and then the products and its services. And more this is becoming about your why. Like if people say to me, oh, well, you know, who's Matt Brown and what's your show about? So like, well, if you ask my listeners, I mean, it's about my why is very simply help entrepreneurs succeed. Bang, done. Everything else I do after that, whether I do live podcast shows, consulting, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or more podcast interviews like this, doesn't matter. The story's the same. Do you know what I mean? Tell your story often enough and people will start to believe it.
Now, speaking of one of the points you touched in the beginning, for a lot of people who still come into entrepreneurship with the image of Russian models and fly cars, in which when I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, the story is about, oh, I had to sell my car just to keep this running. A very different scenario here. When does that actually start? Because on Instagram, the pages that have the fly Russian models that are about entrepreneurship, they say, they have so many followers. You know,
Yeah, when does it start or stop?
When does it start to get
Real.
Yeah, to get real, to actually get the Russian models and the cars.
What about you missed the Bolivian cocaine there, dude? I mean, no. So look, I think it's the wrong question if I'm honest. I think it starts when. I mean, I suppose a better question would be, when do you know when to quit? Because oftentimes you're chasing especially when you're younger. I mean, you're chasing the ambition of being the Russian supermodel hoarder, you know, sure. And the fast cars and the Courvoisier and all that shit, you know. So basically, you have a vision, and that's your vision. Whatever your vision is for you, it can be fixing the world or one, shoe at a time in the terms of Tom's, or whatever your vision is. But somehow, somewhere deep inside you, you've got a vision as an entrepreneur to create something, right? Can be based in a kind of a contribution perspective, in the sense of I'm starting a business to help entrepreneurs succeed, or I just want to be rich. I can guarantee you, if it's the latter, you'll fail. You will fail at some point. I mean, like, it's been told time and time again, it doesn't work.
I don't know how you can get motivated just by that.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, but it's easy when you're young to chase dollars. I mean, I did that all the time. I mean, I was like, I want to make $1 billion, you know. But as you grow into it, when you're young, you don't really know what you want.
Right.
And as you go through life experiences and you fail a lot, hopefully, you learn actually that what life's about is about contribution. I mean, all the successful entrepreneurs and billionaires that I've interviewed always say at the end of my interviews, I say, why do you do what you do? And like 99 of the 100 episodes, or the guests will say something about contribution, not money.
Yeah.
They never chase money. You chase money, you'll fail. Money comes as a byproduct of serving others or solving a problem at scale, to your point. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Well, I was asking as a...
When does it start? Okay, so when do you quit? Sorry, yeah. So basically, thanks for the detour. But basically, how do you know when to quit, right? So very simply, you have a vision and you have a business. Your business is either making money or it's not. And you're either in love with the vision or you're not. So how you decide, very simply, is to say, am I in love with helping entrepreneurs succeed? Yes. Great. Am I making money with Matt Brown Media? Yes. Great. That's when you know you should continue. But if your business is not making money and you're still in love with helping entrepreneurs succeed or the vision, then you need to fix the business, not the vision. But if you are not making money and you're not in love with the vision, then you must quit. I don't want $1 billion anymore. Or I hate consulting. I don't want to take shit from clients all day. You know, that's not in love with the vision. But the business side of things is easy to fix. It's actually your motivations, your why.
Yeah.
You need to, in fact, I'd say before you start a business, one, you're never going to have all the information you need to succeed ever. You just need to work that shit out as you go. But more importantly, you need to have a very strong why. So when, you know, your wife says to you, you need to go get a job because you're not making money, or you miss mortgage payments, or you can't pay for your car, or whatever the sob story is, your why is going to be the thing that keeps you going.
Sure.
So you should you should probably spend more time thinking about why you want to do this thing, you know, than it is about what the thing is going to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this is a great simple way to get to something really rich. So if you say to me, I want $1 billion business. I want to sell my startup. It's going to be on the blockchain, cryptocurrency, disrupt financial services or cross-border payments, whatever. And I'm going to make $100 million. That's my goal. Why?
No, that's not enough.
Why do you want $1 billion? Why do you want $1 billion?
Yeah. Why? What?
No, but why? Why do you want the money?
Yeah.
I want to buy fast cars. I want to get myself some Russian supermodels and a fancy yacht in France. Why? Why do you want that? Well, because I want to feel important. Why? Why do you want to feel important? Well, because my dad always treated me like shit or whatever, you know. Why do you think that is? So now you're getting somewhere that's deep. So now, like my dad treated me like shit, so actually, I want to feel significant. Why do you want to feel significant? Well, because if I'm not significant, then I don't mean anything. Or my life has no meaning. Okay. So if your life had meaning, what would that look like? Well, I'd build a business. Okay, but do you want a business for $1 billion that's worth $1 billion, or do you want to build a business of meaning? That's actually about meaning. Oh, great. Do you see? So you've actually got to do a lot of kind of self-examination and I suppose to a lesser or larger degree storytelling with yourself, because we make up these things to make us feel significant or insignificant, or we're trying to put it this way, you're buying into a story in your head that's not true. I'm doing that right now. We tell stories to ourselves, even you are, you know what I mean? Like you're always telling stories to ourselves in a bookstore, in a kitchen, driving a car, riding a bike, like it never ever stops. But the fact is you have to kind of work out what's the story that you're going to hold on to when things get really tough.
Yes.
Because I want to build a business of meaning. And if I make $1 billion, cool. But if I make 100 million, hey, boom. In fact, if I'm going to make $1 billion, I might as well give it away.
Yeah.
Because actually, what's the point?
Sure.
Otherwise. Do you know what I mean?
I think the meaning is really the foundation, because if you don't have a strong meaning, that's when you quit when things get really hard. I think I don't know how one would get motivated by just making a lot of money. I don't know.
Look, I mean, it's great. Money's nice, but you're going to, like, I can tell you something for certainty. Like, all the billionaires I have, they never care about the money. I mean, there's a reason why, like, Bill Gates and company, they give away their billions. They keep caring. Mark Zuckerberg was another one, wasn't he?
And actually, if you look at most of the billionaires, you will see that they're doing something that's really impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love the money as long as I can prepare to give them the majority of that shit away.
Sure.
Because actually it's about like leaving something behind that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah. I asked that question as a satire question to reverse the psychology, because there is a lot of that perception about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It has become, I think, something that most people would go in expecting, like, that's where all the crazy thing happen.
Well, it's certainly where you're going to find yourself.
Yeah, that's actually true as well. Yeah.
But you'll find yourself, and it's a process, But you've got to be prepared to like do the hard yards, and kind of give up on the dreams you think you wanted. It's weird, man. You just got to live every day to its fullest and persevere, right? And be open. Because actually, if you decide that you want to create something in the world that truly matters to the communities that you care about, the Matt Brown Show, I mean, like, I'm still not, I've got visions in my head about what that's going to be, but I'm not clear around that. Like, if you ask me, Matt, what's your vision? I wouldn't know. Like, I don't have I want to help 1 million entrepreneurs succeed. That's like, who cares? I want $1 billion, who cares? I want to be financially independent, rad. I want to be able to help any entrepreneur I can every single day of the year. That's success.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's well defined, eh?
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, if it's 1 million, cool. But who am I to know how big it's going to get? Why must I decide? Why can't I just say, my why is I'm going to help entrepreneurs succeed in any way that I can? If it's live podcast, information sharing, writing a book, whatever. I've had 2 publishers come to me and say, can you write a book? I said, no, because I haven't written, I'm only going to write 1 book. And if I had to choose. And my book title would be How I Built a $1 billion media company by just taking an interest in people. Rad. Great story, because that's actually what it's about. I have one of these conversations every day. I inspire someone in the 100 countries around the world that's listening to my show. And I inspire one every day to start a business. It's 183 businesses, assuming half of those fail, right? So that's the current ratio. But of those 182 businesses, if they all employ 10 people, we're at. That's legacy.
Yeah, that's legacy.
And if they then encourage and blah, 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 and so it starts to snowball, but it all actually starts with this, which is a microphone and a conversation between 2 dudes, or a guy and a girl, Matt in this case, or you and me in this case, and that's what's inspiring. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking legacy, because you got 3 billion people who are going to connect to the internet for the first time, right? In the next 2 years, dude. That's in Africa. Africa. Yeah. And what are they going to want? Information. Yeah. What are they going to want? Stories. Because, hey, this new thing called the internet's arrived. Amazing. Right? And if I can be there on their smartphones, right, and I've got the media platform and all the equity in the story, and I can help these guys build businesses, I don't care what businesses that it is. It doesn't need to be a tech business. It can be any business. Start a fucking business, because you can't not work for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the future.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's the journey that I want to be on. And if one day it's 1 billion people, right, I get $1 for every person that I reach, then why not?
Sure.
That's what John Sonnet calls a moonshot.
Actually, there's a couple of guys on the internet right now who are supported by their own community, like Sam Harris. His podcast is solely supported by his listeners, contributions. So if you have 10 to 20 million people listening a month, if any of them would contribute 50 cents or so,
you stack it up. Look, I don't know. I've been horrendously bad at asking for money. I still am. It's weird. It's just like I've never. The same for you, right? So I used to chase money, but not anymore. I'd rather just do it for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't worry, man. You should charge like 160 for this, but you're getting it for 50K. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get over the fact that you've lost revenue, and actually it's about just doing it because you're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like there's no unnecessary pressure when you're not you're doing it because you want to. I guess it's different.
Yeah, and you love it.
I've done a few podcasts before where I had to do it because there were some financials involved.
Changes everything.
And then it changed everything. I regretted even before we actually recorded. I was like, okay, why did I get myself involved into this?
So, it's just, I've built this massive listenership without spending a cent in advertising. And people say to me, but you're stupid. Matt, you're running a business, dude. You need to put advertising behind every single episode that you do. Why?
Because they're looking for, massive growth.
Everybody wants more money. Yeah, but what's that saying? It takes 15 years to make a quick buck.
Wow.
But also, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. You know, so you have to, yeah, sure, I'm probably going to put media behind it at some point. But you only get to reach people, like your first impressions really do last. So which one do you boost and which, I don't know. Like I've always wanted to do it my way. And I meet with investors all the time and they're like, yeah, but you need to do this and you need to do that. And you know, you need to grow. Like I'm like, no, I don't. So either you share my vision or you don't, right? So, and if you don't, well, then you're not the right investor for me. Look, I know I've got a huge, massively amazing idea that unfortunately I can't share with you, but I'm creating a channel out of all this stuff that I'm creating. And I'm hoping that I can change the way that learning fundamentally works within South Africa and around the world, where we can essentially pay people to learn, to become entrepreneurs.
Oh, sounds interesting.
Yeah. So I can't tell you how that works, but now that's something I'm going to put ads behind. Hey, you want to start a business? Great. We're going to pay you to learn. Brought to you by MBEN, the Matt Brown Entrepreneurship Network. That's what I'm creating. But funnily, you know, like I started 18 months ago and it was just like a really crappy interview. You know, but that's how fast things can change. But I mean, that's what I say, like, stop thinking about segments, married, what, like people, like marketing speak, LSM what? 4 to 7. Well, you know, why? They're people. It's like pick a community that you care about and serve them as best you can, religiously and relentlessly. You know, they're not a number. They're human beings. So start treating them like that. You know, and like as I said, people, going back to the thing we were talking about right in the beginning, it's like people want authenticity. You know, and you be authentic, tell your story, pick a community and truly care about them and you'll win. You will make money, like, and you have to play the long game. I'm like, too many guys and girls start businesses and they want to make money overnight. That's why it takes 15 years to make a quick buck. No, you don't make money easy. It takes time and thinking and careful planning. And, you know, sure, I could take an investor now, but why? Why should I? Just because I can take money and put more ads behind my podcast. No.
And then who likes ads?
Yeah, so exactly, who cares, right? I'm like the antithesis of advertising, speaking to you now, you know? So, look, I'm saying there's a place for it. I'm just saying it's not right.
Right.
You know, so I guess one of the biggest things you have to learn is how do you make decisions? You know, and it's a skill that anyone can learn, but very few actually master. You know, you're going to make many, many bad decisions. And that's why I say, like, entrepreneurship is like a compounded thing. You must start.
So there's this thing, to finish off. I think, let's break it down into 2 segments. Firstly, what are your daily routines, if you have any, like weekly, monthly, that you think contribute to your success and how you kick ass?
Yeah, cool. I mean, one thing I would say is running a business, starting a business, being an entrepreneur is very, very stressful. And I would suggest, like, when you're stuck in your head, you need to get into your body. So you go make love, like, get into your body, do something, push weights, run, walk. Just get out of your head and into nature to give you the perspective. Because oftentimes you're 3 feet away from gold. So there's a story that I talk about. It's the last story I'll share. But basically, when I started podcasting, like, I'd publish stuff, and like I'm sure you've been there, like 2-3 weeks go by, not a single listen, apart from you. It's like literally says one, or at least when I was still doing video, that's what it was. And so you have this moments of crisis where you think, oh shit, I'm not going to continue anymore. And when that happened with me, I remembered the story, and the story is basically called Are You Darby, right? He was a gold sort of speculator, I guess. But his uncle had found a mine in Colorado. And what he did was he phoned up Darby, RU, and said, listen, dude, can you go back to family and friends because we need equipment to mine the gold? So he did. He raised a lot of money and they mined the gold and turned out to be one of the biggest mines in the whole of Colorado. Crazy, right? It's amazing. Guys were printing money hand over fist. And then one day the gold stopped. Why? And they drilled and they drilled and they mined and they mined, and every day they drilled and every day they mined, they found no gold. And eventually they ran out of money. And so the only thing they could do was sell their equipment. So they used to have these things called junk men back in those days, 1800s. Junkmen were pretty, regarded as pretty stupid, right? But this one junkman wasn't. So when he bought the equipment off the Derbies, he heard their story and went, hang on, something's not right here. So what he did was he employed a mining engineer to verify the size of the mine. I mean, obviously he had the maps and all that stuff. And what the mining engineer concluded was that they had missed gold simply because they couldn't trace the vein of the gold ore. And on top of that, they were 3 feet away from finding the vein again.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's an interesting story because you never know when you're 3 feet away. You just got to keep going.
I guess that's where this internet meme of the guy trying to dig a hole.
That's it, yeah.
That's where it comes from, right?
Yeah. That's it. So I mean, it's like you don't know where you're going with this.
For sure, yeah. And I didn't even know. I mean, even 3 months after I started, I still didn't know that I would meet you. Or I would.
Yeah, exactly, bro. I didn't know I was going to meet you. It's great to finally meet someone that's got a similar philosophy. Like you literally, the first person I've met outside of a studio. You know what I mean? So. And that's exciting. So I mean, there's going to be more and more of you and me type of guys who want to tell their stories. Regardless of what it is. If you're into fashion or pet products, or if you like to build, small houses out of matchsticks, there's someone out there that cares about that story. But you have to tell it, and for me, it's like you're not going to find a bigger global audience than podcasting. There's 1.5 billion Apple podcast subscriptions now. That's a quarter of the planet Earth that listens to podcasts. That's quite a big market. So why not go and have fun and tell it? So we're actually launching a thing now called getpodcasting.co.za. It's literally for you. So like, hey, you're working with your digital audio workstation. You got these microphones. But how do you produce really great content? So it's literally a hand-holding exercise. Where if you want to start a podcast and you can't afford Matt Brown media fees, there's this online site that you can join. And it's a community as well, so you can connect with other dudes and girls and say, hey, what do you think of this show? Or what would give me feedback on this, because it's important.
Yeah, for sure.
You learn through that kind of thing. And right now there's no community to do that
in South Africa. That's absolutely amazing, because I struggled for just like, okay, who do I talk to when I started, or is there a community here? I could find communities online which are not based here, so it's different because the podcasting community and out there it's totally different.
Totally.
The numbers and the stories,
but it's all changing, bro. I mean, really it is. I think it's a very exciting time, man. It's so exciting. So you should join there as well, dude. I'm happy to set you up as like a moderator admin, and you can run it.
Cool. Awesome.
If you want.
Awesome.
I mean, put your shit up there and help. I said it's all about community, right? So I care about the community of podcasting. I care about the community of entrepreneurs. You care, clearly. So if you care about that, then let's connect people and see what great stories we can share, because I do believe South Africa's got some great stories. Probably some of the best stories in the world. We're just not telling them as well as we should.
What are other podcasts that you would recommend to the people listening that are South African podcasts as well?
How I Built This by NPR, I like that because of the show structure. So you get 3 types of show structures: interview like this versus a combination of interview and narrative or story. So it's kind of like, so Matt, Greg called Matt this morning and, asked him whether he'd be interested in coming onto the show. And then Matt said, hey, you guys should all check out Gray's podcast. Do you know what I mean? So you're kind of combining the interview and
I like that,
and the narrative. So I like that. Tim Ferriss as well, but I kind of like going off his stuff now because he hasn't changed in 250 shows. It's the same stuff, same questions. It's like, okay, dude, surely the data's all starting to look the same. I mean, like if you listen,
I'm a believer. Also, I listen to a lot of his stuff, but like right now, I've just been like, I think he has a block now. He doesn't really possibly know where to go anymore. I don't know,
dude. I mean, he's written the book which I couldn't finish. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, if you listen to my show, it was the Digital Kungfu show. Now it's the Matt Brown show. There's like 6 different intros. I've had rappers, I've had everyone from like Canadian voiceover artists, to today where it's like a professionally produced audio clip which sounds like a radio but it's not. Do you know what I mean? I'm adding music and it's always changing. You never know what you're going to get. And that's fun, because, by the way, life's meant to be fun.
For sure.
Learning's meant to be fun. And somehow we kind of forgot that,
Yeah, and to me, the podcasting, I love it because there's no certain goal that I need. Like, there's no, obviously I'm expecting great conversation like this, but there's no, okay, it has to be this way. It's so dynamic and it changes all the time.
Yeah,
so it's it pushes me to go in a lot of spaces inside my head and outside as
just
well.
have fun with it. Fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to know. The only thing that's certain about life is that you're never going to know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's like what you know today, you don't know the next day, because it's become obsolete because of the world that's changing. So the moment you think that you know it all is a moment when you have your greatest failures, because you become arrogant, complacent. It's like, I know I've got one of the hottest media properties in South African business right now, but for how long? That's why I've moved into the live podcast space, where I have 300, 400 people in a room and I interview people properly. It's like no one can compete with me on that. It takes balls. So that's what I'm saying. Like Tim Ferriss, I know he's done live shows before, but he should only do live shows eventually.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like people they want new. And I don't know, I think it's important to your point about innovation and marketing. Like, again, how do you work with innovation and marketing your business to tell that story? So, Matt Brown did a cryptocurrency first South African media event of its kind. Live podcast with a panel and a live audience.
Sure.
Sponsored by a big financial services institution. Great story.
So one thing that most people would love to hear from you is the monetizing structure when it comes to podcast.
Yeah.
How can one possibly monetize, and what are the do's and the don'ts? Because obviously, like we said, if there is some money involved, things seem to change.
Yeah. So why do you want to monetize? So that's the first question.
I would answer that.
Okay, go.
If I want to quit everything and just focus on my podcast entirely, I would need to support myself.
Okay, so, what are your downloads like? Are they big?
No.
Okay, so most shows aren't, and that's the reality. So, again, going back to it, what could you do? So, remembering that you have a number of options here. You can either try and commercialize the show like NPR does, but do you really want to have sponsors on your show?
No.
Do you really?
No.
Is the money that important?
No.
Because if it is, then by all means, get sponsors to brand your show. I've done this, but I get paid like, 15 grand to interview someone for an hour because I know what I'm doing in that space. Hence why I want to become the Larry King of podcasting. You know what I'm saying? But having said that, that's not money they're paying me by commercializing the listenership. I've always shied away from taking money from people. In other words, I don't want to change the listening experience for you or anybody else in those 100 countries just because the sponsor wants to rent my platform from me. Great to make money, but to be fair, do people really want to have ads on the Matt Brown show? Again, I'll have ads on there, right? But only under very specific circumstances. Like I'm not going to have so ABC handbags is probably it's like you're not going to it's about being true to your listeners above all else. Despite your motivations. Yeah, but I will say this: you can make more money by building a brand, your personal brand. Great podcast, very cool. You can make more money telling your story about how you did that. Do you know what I mean? Than you would ever monetizing downloads. To be legit. Unless you are Tim Ferriss and you're getting like 100 million downloads or 10 million downloads an episode, right? But unfortunately, most people are not that guy.
Yeah.
And even me in the privileged position that I'm in, I'm not that guy. Like I reach 30, 40,000 people an episode, but that's massive here. But it's not really comparable to other. Think about it. What's the story you're going to tell an advertiser about your downloads? Because remembering, you also don't know how long they listen for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's lots of very big open-ended questions and important questions from a commercialization perspective that advertisers are going to want to know. So the good news is, though, that my company is helping solve that problem by doing a market liquidity initiative all around podcast consumption in South Africa. So you should come to that, dude.
Sure.
It's probably 2 to 4 weeks, but in the next month, I'll be releasing the data for the first time that South Africa has never, ever had before.
Okay.
So think about it. So I've done that through my story, but now what can I do with it? The data. I can start to do talks, right? I can start to sell more podcasts. I can do a lot of things because I have the platform and the story that works in the market, right? But I mean, I can make more money off this outside of the platform, right, than on it. So rather be true to your listeners and say, listen, I'm actually going to give you the best listening experience possible, build reputations like, that I have, and hence why we're having this interview right now. And always be true to your listener and put your needs second. And again, it's the long-term play. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's bullshit, But it's about actually being realistic and saying, listen, what are you building here? Going back to your why, being clear around what that is, and sacrificing short-term gain for long-term equity. Because I can promise you, if you play a long-term game, you'll win.
And I asked that question because most people that would email me, they want to quit their job and, start podcasting, and they want to know how to make money. So it's harder for me to answer that question because I never monetize my podcast. I make money out of it because of that I have the podcast. There are other opportunities that come through outside of it. But they're just not guaranteed that the same situation will happen to everyone else. Like I produce other podcasts for other people.
So again, I have a solution for that.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So basically the idea would be like, you give me your content, we'll host it on this channel that I'm building, and we'll pay you for every second that people listen.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, cool, hey?
Yeah.
So again, we can do this because we're living in this thing called the digital economy.
Yeah.
And you can literally rewrite the rule book. So, I mean, how awesome is that? Oh, we want to become an entrepreneur? Cool, we can get you paid to learn. All you have to do is pitch up every day and learn, right? From your side as a content producer, you can also have your own channel. Right, and depending on how cool your channel is, you get paid. Tech bucks.
When is that gonna start running?
Yeah, so it's we're actually waiting for the tech to catch up to the idea.
Okay,
that's the truth. But as we discussed earlier, tech's catching up pretty quickly, right? So best guesstimates probably towards the end of this year. Yeah, but maybe again beginning of next year. But start with Join and Get Podcasting. It's free. It doesn't cost anything.
I'll put the links in the description.
Yeah, join up there and start getting familiar with, storytelling, how do I do that? And then when you're ready to produce your show, I mean, if you're up for it, you can use you as a case study in the proof of concept, if you're keen.
I'm totally keen.
So hook me up with your shit, and then you'll be the first adopter on that, and anybody else that's listening can always get in touch with me. But I mean, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
Get paid. I mean, this is the problem that you have, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people keep thinking about these old paradigms. Well, I need advertisers to make money. You don't.
Yeah.
Or I need $1 million to make money. No, you don't. Question everything.
I mean, I hustle outside of the podcast, but if it would pay me as well, that would be awesome, because it's one of the things that I enjoy. Come to Johannesburg just to meet guys like you. That's I would do that any day.
Yeah, man, it's rad. Fuck, I would.
Yeah.
If I had to choose between selling ads all day or just telling stories and focusing on telling the best possible story that I can tell.
Without worrying
because I
about
know that if I do a great job at telling that story and I get great listenership, then I get paid more. I mean, it's the right way to incentivize people, right? Otherwise, ads, you're just a sellout.
Yeah. It's like you structure your podcast just like to really sell that product sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what makes the media now. Most of the media is like structure the content in a way that it sells. Or most of the magazines now just like it's mostly advertising than anything. You turn the page, okay, a little bit of content, the next one, a car in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And a few other pages, a guy selling you a protein shake or something.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you this, and just one last story. So basically, for as long as we can remember, the human race business has been motivated by profit, right?
Sure.
And we all know where that gets you wound up, right? So let me give you what's happening currently, right? So Amazon isn't pursuing profit. They don't make profits.
Yeah.
They make maybe $1.2 million a year. That is pittance compared to the tens of billions, hundreds of billions that they make in turnover. Why aren't they making a profit?
Because they're customer focused.
Yes,
trying
and
to-
they're pursuing vision,
Yeah.
to my earlier point, and growth. They're reinvesting everything that they make into the growth of that business. That's why Amazon's not just an e-commerce retailer. Like, they're going to become the death of brands as we know it, right? You've got Alexa, voice-activated ordering, AI, they've got drones, they got like... They're becoming. They're going to become the first $1 trillion market cap company in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't pursue profits; they pursue vision, helping an entrepreneur succeed today. Becoming the most customer-centric business in the world ever. Right? Vision, and then growth, not selling out to ads in the short term because you need the cash. Go get another job, wait at tables, do something else, right? But don't suffer short-term profits for long-term vision, because if you do that, you're going to fail. Someone else will come along and literally beat you because they're going to be slow and steady, like the tortoise in the hare.
And the weak point already.
It's like Bitcoin. It was never meant to be a tradable cryptocurrency. It was always meant to grow slowly, so that by the time the financial institutions woke up to it, it would be too late.
Which is what's happening now.
Yeah, it's the Matt Brown show.
Yeah.
Slow. Same with you. Slow. But eventually you're growing organically, and eventually you become a thing. That's what I did, and that's what I would recommend that everybody does.
I think this is one of the best podcasts ever recorded on my show. But thanks. We can end it right now. I don't want to take too much of your
Well, thanks for your time, man. It's been rad to get to share my story. It's usually me on the other end of the mic.
It's a rare situation, right?
Yeah. Cool. If you give me the content, bro, I'll put it on my show for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll put it out. So that's it, guys. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode.